let's look at this in another way and one more connection to the eye, and it'll better prepare you to see it as it connects here. And then for those of you who don't know what you're looking at here, you're looking at another version of the spider's web, a more correct version of the spider's web that shows the Garden of Eden event with the apple, the division of the knowledge, how it's affected in the brain, the whole thing, and how this whole thing ends up playing out. And then if you even notice the cross lining here, looks like DNA as it's running the program age by age. Alright, so let's think about this. This is just one more way to see that we're on the right track, that we're talking about the appropriate symbology as it's all connected to the entirety of the whole. You've heard the expression before, apple of the eye. And I even looked into, I think it's considered maybe not a poem, but maybe a literary work, A Midsummer's Night Dream. And there's some incredible coded information about this apple of the eye portion of that, which is incredible, which relates back to the garden, the fallen angels, everything. But you have to see it in a certain way it's coded. But the point that I'm trying to get you to see here is, if we're talking about this being the garden event, and that this is the serpent entering into the garden event, and then as we see this serpent, now we've related this as the eye, this becomes the singular focus. Now enter the cliche saying, apple of the eye. And then we know by mankind's sights he shall be deceived, and we begin to understand that this thing is telling you, really, it's connected to everything. So now we know what the apple of the eye is, which is now what begins to run the material program age by age. Okay? So that's just a little bit something more for you to think about. Alright, I think the next thing that I want to show you here is probably how this thing turns into the web, in its connection to this womb, to the incubation time, basically. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with ages, with gestation periods, and that's really what you're seeing on the macro scale of this, that his ideology, in order for it to break forth in our world through our dominion, he has to gestate it, in a sense, in the underground, in this womb that we're actually giving it residence in a sense. We're giving it entertainment. All right? Understand that as we see this dot now enter into the scene, you have to understand also that Christ's word is considered water. And you could consider this, at this point, a tranquil pond with not a ripple upon it. Okay, a peaceful, tranquil pond. And then, of course, the stone hits it, the falling stone, the fallen star, and then, of course, the ripple outward. You can see it as that effect. And, of course, we can begin to see this as that abysmal portion of the well, the bottomless pit that is echoing up and outward. It's all going to tell you the same thing no matter what. But in this perspective, I just want you to see now how it's going to line up exactly with the spider's web as it connects with time and ages. And so let's just say this. Look at it like this. If you're imagining this happening in the distant past, the early influence, and then age by age it increases and ever grows outward and affects more of the whole, in essence growing more inside of the womb until the birthing time begins to happen. Well, if you were to time that up with my Mayan world age chart, this is what you're going to see. You're going to see this right here. You're going to see these 5 separate segments. When you overlay what I just showed you with the circles rippling outwards, you make the spider's web. There's our circles rippling outwards, and then here's our time symbol, and they're weaving the spider's web. I'll be back.